It begins in stillness, the kind that makes every sound sharper. The dispatch room hums softly under fluorescent light, a room of routine and repetition until a single ring breaks the night. The call shouldn't exist. Its timestamp matches a dead woman's number, its signal traced from waterlogged silence. A dispatcher answers with a calm voice that hides confusion. Then the whisper comes through, faint, trembling, undeniably human. "Help me!" The sound cuts, leaving only static that seems to breathe. In that pause, the world shifts. Death is supposed to be quiet, final, and certain. But tonight, the line refuses to stay buried. Every detective in the building feels it. Something cold and unseen has just entered the room. Morning brings no comfort, only disbelief wrapped in routine. The precinct buzzes with whispers and half-formed theories. Some say it's a glitch. Others call it a cruel prank. But the silence after that call lingers, heavier than proof. Files shuffle, phones ring, coffee brews, yet everyone avoids the empty desk where the call came through. It feels like an altar now. A space between life and something that refused to stay gone. The detective walks in, shoulders stiff, eyes distant. He doesn't speak at first, just listens. To the faint hum of machines. The rhythm of normal life, pretending nothing has changed. But the truth is already spreading. Someone or something reached across a week of death to ask for help. The tape plays again, but this time silence fills more space than sound. Every pause feels deliberate, as though the voice knew she was speaking from the other side of something. The whisper is softer now, cracked by distance, yet the fear behind it feels close enough to touch. The detective closes his eyes and listens beyond the words, to the wind, the shifting tone, the faint click like a door unlocking. The others can't hear it or won't admit it. He senses meaning hiding in the noise, something desperate trying to reach through layers of time and static. Somewhere in that breathless gap between words, truth hides like a heartbeat that refuses to stop. Outside the station, daylight feels foreign. The sky hangs low, clouds swollen with storm. The detective's breath fogs in the air as he stands by the parking lot, staring at nothing in particular. Somewhere in his mind, the voice loops endlessly, a whisper that refuses to die. The others talk about forensics and phone traces, but he knows this case doesn't belong to science alone. Sometimes the dead find ways to speak, through recordings, through memory, through guilt. And maybe through people who listen long enough. As he looks toward the ocean in the distance, the air smells like rain and electricity, a warning that truth is already on its way back to shore. That night, the wind returns, restless, whispering through the wires above the precinct. The detective can't sleep. Every creak in his apartment sounds like a phone ringing in another room. He keeps the file open on his table, the words post-mortem call staring back at him. Somewhere, the truth waits, buried under digital noise and fear. The whisper replays in his mind, not as a plea, but as a warning. He's still here. The words echo again, merging with the hum of the night. He knows what comes next. To reopen what was already buried. To find what refuses to rest. And with that thought, the silence finally breaks. His phone rings. The line that once carried her voice is silent now. Yet it hums with presence. The detective stands before the evidence board, connecting pins and strings that form a map of confusion. Each timestamp, each fragment of sound feels alive, vibrating faintly beneath the surface of order. Somewhere in those numbers, a pattern hides. Somewhere in that static, a message waits. The whisper was not random. It was deliberate, directed. And the closer he looks, the clearer the realization becomes. Whoever made that call wanted to be found, even from the other side of silence. A signal trace, a ghost through the air. The technician explains the impossible. A call placed from a phone with no SIM card, no power, no network. The data logs confirm it. The signal originated near Emily's apartment, but the line was rerouted to an old relay station that hasn't been active for years. The detective listens in silence, each word sinking like a stone. The room feels smaller now, air thick with questions that science can't answer. For every explanation, another door opens, and behind one of them, a truth waits that doesn't belong to the living. Memory is a trickster, bending time, turning fear into fragments. The friend recalls the week before it all began, strange noises through the phone, faint breathing when no one spoke. She remembers laughter turning to silence, silence turning to whispers. When she told her to call the police, it was already too late. Now sitting across from the detective, she speaks with the hollow calm of someone who's lived this night too many times in her head. Every word carries guilt, a soft confession that echoes louder than truth. Night again. The world outside flickers in the glow of lightning, the storm pressing closer. He drives without direction, the call replaying in his mind like a haunting melody. The whisper is no longer just sound. It has rhythm, emotion, intent. He begins to notice the gaps, the tiny breaks between static, as though someone is trying to speak through interference. It feels alive, waiting to be decoded. The deeper he listens, the louder it gets, until the static itself starts to sound like breathing. The old relay tower looms like a relic, half swallowed by trees and time. The detective stands in the dark field below it, his flashlight beams slicing through fog. The tower hums faintly, a vibration buried in the wind, alive in a way that shouldn't be. He steps closer, feeling the air change, as though the signal still lingers here, waiting for another call. The storm above breaks open, thunder rolling through the steel bones of the structure. He looks up, rain streaming across his face, and knows this is where the dead found their way back. The building breathes. Every wall seems to hum faintly. Every pipe carries whispers beneath its metal skin. The detective feels the air tighten as he crosses the threshold. It's not sound, but pressure, memory pressing against the present. The room smells of salt and dust, the residue of life suddenly interrupted. He walks slowly, listening. The silence doesn't comfort, it waits. He knows this place once held fear. He can almost sense it, the shape of panic, the outline of a scream. Somewhere in this stillness, the truth is waiting, recording itself on air that refuses to forget. Every detective knows when a house is lying. The clues hide not in what's found, but in what's missing. Here, the silence itself feels edited, erased in places. The drawers, untouched but rearranged. The dust, disturbed in shapes too small for footprints. Somewhere behind the walls, a faint clicking repeats like a heartbeat. The sound is almost electrical, but it carries intention. He kneels, listening close to the floorboards. Static flutters beneath them, faint but alive. Something's here. Not a ghost. Not yet. But something that remembers her. They find the crawl space behind a false panel. A cavity no larger than a closet. Inside, a nest of wires, dust, and the stale breath of forgotten time. The detective shines his light across the small chamber, finding an old microphone mounted into the wall. Every sound made in this apartment was recorded. For how long? No one knows. The thought lands heavy. The dead had been speaking all along. Not through ghosts, but through the past preserved in tape. Somewhere within those reels, her voice waits to finish what she started. The tape plays, and the room changes. It's not memory. It's repetition. Her voice fills the air, soft and careful at first, describing the sounds she hears at night. Then the shift, panic under her breath, something moving closer, something unseen. The detective listens, frozen. The fear in her tone is alive again, vibrating through speakers that shouldn't work after all these years. The final seconds come sharp and broken, footsteps, a door creak, and then a man's voice, not hers. The power cuts before the sentence ends. The silence afterward feels alive, as if the room itself is holding back the rest. The detective stays long after the others leave. The city outside has fallen silent, the storm exhausted, but the whisper still loops in his head. He replays the final seconds of the tape, listening past the static, straining for what the human ear wasn't meant to catch. And there it is, faint, almost buried, a sound like a phone dial. The impossible connection forming again. His breath stills. Somewhere, another device has awakened, finishing what was interrupted. The voice that called a week after death is calling again. There's a stillness before discovery, the hush of air just before it's filled with truth. The detective sits in the dark, surrounded by screens that glow like ghosts. The newest file, pulled from an old cloud backup, bears her name. The timestamp matches the night she died. When he hits play, the silence stretches too long. Then, faintly, her voice emerges, cracked and trembling. She's whispering something meant for one person only, not the world. He leans closer, breath suspended. It's not a goodbye, it's a warning. The voice cuts in and out, words fractured by interference. Yet emotion bleeds through every gap. Fear, urgency, love, regret. She speaks as if she knows someone is listening in another time. He turns up the volume. Behind her voice, the faint creak of floorboards, the slow scrape of metal, the subtle rhythm of someone else breathing. He realizes he's not listening to a message. He's listening to a moment unfolding, the recording of her last night alive. Memory returns in layers. He visits the friend again, bringing the recording. She doesn't speak as it plays. Her face shifts between grief and horror. Recognition through disbelief. The voice on the recording says her name, softly, like a farewell she never received. Then, another name, a man's, half swallowed by static. She shakes her head, insists it can't be real. But the tone, the pauses, the fear, all of it matches. The detective doesn't push. He just lets the silence after the message do its work. Patterns start to emerge. Timing, phrasing, pauses that seem coded. The detective maps the sounds, matching them to timestamps from the night of the murder. Every minute syncs perfectly with the power outage reported near the coast. The voice on the tape isn't just recounting fear. It's following something in real time. When he overlays it with the police scanner logs, his stomach tightens. She was recording while he was responding to another call that same night. They were only blocks apart, two signals crossing in the dark. Night settles again, heavier than before. He listens once more, the same voicemail, now painfully familiar. But this time, his mind catches what he missed. A faint echo before the whisper, like the voice of someone repeating her words a second too late. It's not feedback, it's reflection. Someone close enough to be caught on the same line. The sound isn't hers alone. The call was never only a message, it was a recording of two people, one pleading, one answering, and only one of them died. There's a thin line between technology and haunting. Both carry echoes of what we can't let go. The detective plays the recording again, slowing the speed until distortion becomes speech. Beneath the fear in her voice lies another sound, breath drawn through clenched teeth, the shuffle of a man pacing. The pattern isn't random. It's deliberate. Someone built this. Someone wanted her message to reach the wrong people at the right time. The realization is cold, surgical. The voice from beyond was never reaching out. It was being pushed through. Truth hides in timing. He matches the ghost calls to old surveillance footage from the abandoned relay tower. The power surges line up perfectly with the moments the dead number came alive. Someone was reactivating the system manually, feeding pre-recorded data into the line. It's not haunting. It's programming. The revelation twists something inside him. All that fear, all that hope, built on manipulation. But the worst part isn't what was faked. It's that someone knew exactly how to make it feel real. Interviews turn into confrontations. The suspect denies everything, claims he's never been near the tower, never touched the phone lines, but guilt has a sound, and it trembles at the edge of his voice. Every word he speaks feels rehearsed, brittle. The detective doesn't press. He just lets silence stretch until it cracks the man open. Beneath anger, beneath excuses, something human bleeds through. Fear. Not of prison, but of memory. The kind that doesn't fade when the lights go out. The truth arrives not in confession, but in collapse. The man finally speaks, voice low and shaking. He never meant to kill her, he says. He just wanted to erase what she recorded, his mistakes, his debt, the things she found out. But technology remembers what humans forget. She backed up everything, even the night she died. The line between guilt and accident blurs until both sound the same. The detective listens, unflinching. Words can lie, but recordings never do. Later, the detective plays the final recovered file. The raw, unedited audio Emily left behind. The sound is quiet at first. Wind, breathing, the soft scrape of a door. Then her voice returns, strong this time unbroken. She's speaking directly to whoever would find her message. She knew she wouldn't survive the night. The confession hidden inside isn't hers, it's his, recorded in the background while he thought no one was listening. The tape doesn't end. It loops, as if to remind the living that truth, once spoken, doesn't die. It just waits for someone brave enough to hear it. The line hums again, a faint vibration that feels alive, familiar. The detective thought it was over, that truth had been exhumed and sealed. But some stories refuse to end neatly. The phone rings once, cuts out, rings again. He doesn't answer. The air feels charged, heavy with what's left unsaid. Every object in the room carries memory. Paper, sound, air. The voice on the line doesn't belong to the dead anymore. It belongs to someone who's still out there listening. The case isn't over. It's only changing form. Storm clouds gather again, pressing the town into darkness. He drives toward the relay tower, the only place where truth still transmits. The road winds like a memory, each turn lined with echoes of sirens from that night. The recording plays in his mind, her final words looping in rhythm with the wipers. He no longer questions the impossible. Logic has fractured. What remains is instinct. The sense that something waits at the end of this road. Not for justice, but recognition. The tower groans in the wind, metal bending under the storm's weight. He climbs the slope toward it, flashlight trembling in his grip. The ground is slick, the air vibrating with energy. Not supernatural, but human, electric, furious. At the base, the power box is open, wires spliced and humming. Someone's been here recently. The realization lands hard. The system was never dormant. It's been live all along, waiting for someone to listen. Thunder cracks overhead and the line between storm and voice disappears. He follows the footprints into the woods, the night alive with storm and breath. The path twists through the trees until it opens into a clearing. An old shed half collapsed under vines and time. The air inside smells of rust and damp paper. The sound of a recorder hums softly, repeating the same 6 seconds of static and whisper. Then another voice breaks through, male, ragged, and very much alive. The realization hits before the sound ends. Someone has been keeping the conversation going. The confrontation happens without warning. Instinct, adrenaline, silence breaking open. The suspect stands framed in the doorway, soaked, eyes wild. The detective doesn't speak. He doesn't have to. The tape still plays, looping their voices together. Victim and killer, past and present. Every word on that recording has already sealed what happens next. The truth doesn't whisper now. It roars, loud enough for both to hear. When the storm finally breaks, the sound of thunder is almost kind. The storm has passed, but the air still carries its weight, the kind that lingers after something irreversible. The detective sits in the silence that follows truth, where adrenaline turns to ache. The call logs, the recordings, the final confession, all that lies spread before him, like the aftermath of a storm. No one can explain. Yet beneath the exhaustion there's clarity. The dead didn't return. The living refused to let them rest. Somewhere in the stillness of cables and signal towers, a voice continues to hum, not to haunt, but to remind. Confession doesn't end the story. It only untangles the threads enough for breath to return. The man sits in custody, head bowed, muttering half-sentences about static and guilt. The detective watches without speaking. Justice feels too small a word for what's left behind. The system will process him. The law will decide his fate. But none of that will quiet the echo that started it all. He knows the recordings will live on, archived like ghosts inside machines built to remember. Some voices never fade. They become part of the frequency itself. Later, he drives to the cliffs, the place where it began. The sea is calm now, the tide low and quiet. The air smells of salt and renewal. But beneath it lingers the same cold undertone he's carried for weeks. He holds the recovered phone in his hand, its cracked surface reflecting sky instead of storm. He doesn't press play this time. Some messages don't need to be heard twice. Instead, he lets the wind carry what's left. The sound of the sea, swallowing what once haunted the living. The friend listens to the final voicemail in private. She doesn't cry this time. Instead, she smiles faintly, the sound washing over her like closure long delayed. The voice doesn't plead now. It thanks her, says she's not alone, and fades into the gentle rhythm of the sea. For the first time, the message feels alive in a different way. Not a haunting, but a release. She closes her eyes, lets the last note dissolve, and understands what it means to be heard after silence. The case closes on paper, but stories like this don't end. They fade into whispers, into frequencies that hover just beyond hearing. That night, the detective sits alone again, file sealed, phone silent. Then, faintly, the sound returns. Static. A breath, a heartbeat across the line. He doesn't move, doesn't answer. Some things aren't meant to be solved. They're meant to remind us that time can't hold everything. Between living and gone, between voice and silence, there's always the line.